Ladies and gentlemen, good morning or good afternoon. It depends. It's great honor and I'm privileged to announce next roundtable in Pula dedicated to engaged film today with a question mark, why do we make films? Well, today's panel discussion features a conversation with our eminent international and Croatian directors about topical issues, engaged film in Europe and in the world today, marketing and expectations about them, both from the audience, you, thank you, and those who work in film festivals, film industry, marketing, sales, and distributions of films around the world. Our distinguished participants are Mr. Eran Kolirin from Israel. Thank you very much. Mr. Jan Matuzynski from Poland. Hello. Mr. Maksym Nakonechnyi from Ukraine. Thank you. And Mr. Vinko Brešan, our host from Zagreb. Vinko, dobar dan.
Dobar dan, Boško.
Thank you very much. Well, at the beginning, our directors will say something about their vision of the term of engaged film. So, Vinko, I wish you all the best in Zagreb. Thank you. You are here with us.
I'm not in Zagreb. I am in Brač.
Okay. Thank you. Much better place for discussion. And the first question, of course, because almost or all your films are the very good representatives of engaged film. What is engaged film for you as the author of them?
Well, for me, it's in the beginning, that's a very hard question for me. When we think about antique Greek drama, we will see that a human being was determined by gods or by destiny. In the present world, human being is determined by politics. If you think in that way, any story you talk about, in which you talk about some human problem, human situation, is in the same way a social problem in a social situation. In that case, every good film is an engaged film. If you think like that.
It was your wish from the beginning of a career, or it changes during the time of it?
I always want to make an interesting story. Interesting story is happened in my area. To talk about some human problem happened in my area. I never changed that. I think that's a way people have to tell the stories.
Okay, thank you, Vinko. We got a lot of space for discussion. Maksym, we are in the middle of the worst war in Europe after the time of World War II, and we wish you all the best and your country in this moment. You made your feature related to the early stage of this war. Now we are in the middle of escalated war. What is engaged film for you as the author from Ukraine?
I actually also come from a documentary field, so it's really a matter of a big matter for me. But I would say that in general, I understood such a thing and such a principle that every film, actually, no matter how experimental, sci-fi or fantasy or fairy tale it may be, each film grows out from the reality. And that's why each film, every art becomes an art only when it reaches its audience. Before that, a film would be just a sequence of moving images, let's say. So and having the roots in growing out from the reality, I think that films should, in the end, also contribute to the reality somehow, anyway, in any kind. It may be different ways. So I would say engaged film is the film that is aware of, or whose authors are aware of these ties and these continuity. So that is more or less what I imagine.
Another question for you is, what do you think, is film as the art and media today influential to wider audience throughout the world?
Well, it's a very difficult question because the information right now is perceived really differently, and it's spread and perceived really differently. So it's actually a big question right now. What position does the film industry take in this new informational age? Because of course, films right now have much less power than it was, I would say, even 30 or 40 years ago. I mean, I don't remember how it was 30 years ago, to be honest. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that it's like that, because like right now, people just watch films not to distract from the reality, not to engage. And this is like, it may be kind of danger. I mean, it's good. It's good that films still do have such power, but at the same time, for me, films, both documentary and fiction, were always the best way to explore the reality and its diversity. So I think that's what we should stick to keep the power of the films and keep like preserve the thing you are asking about, this influence and power to make some change. Is just if we still are able and aiming to bring awareness and also to bring understanding, because no other media, no other let's say art can bring to the viewer understanding on the personal level what other maybe totally different person or people go through, feel, think, and why do they do that. So we still have such power, and I think we should stick to that to be able to be powerful in further in the future.
Thank you, Maksym. We have watched your film Butterfly Vision. Tonight we're gonna watch your film Leave No Traces. Congratulations. That story about Poland in the 80s. Today, Poland is something different in political way. What do you think is possible to make engaged film in the time of autocracy?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes, because it happened. I think that what Maksym said, that we have, tons of films and they are not really working the way we would like to, or how they, used to work years and years ago. But they are still there. We have film festivals, so we have a place to premiere, to screen our films and to talk about them, like today, right? So for me as a director, it gives me, space and power to actually go to work on another project with this feeling that freedom is still available for us to make art. And this is one of the most important things. It's really hard to understand if you're not in this, film circuit, that you need to have a lot of space, no, censorship on any level. And when I was working on Leave No Traces, at the beginning, I thought that that's going to be like a historical epic film. And we will remind that, yeah, shit happened in the 80s. We don't want to come back to this, right? But that was like 4 5 years ago. We premiered almost a year ago in Venice. And that was the moment when I had this feeling that this film is quite contemporary. And although the situation that is presented in the film happened almost 40 years ago, it kind of looks like a thing just around the corner, right? And then February happened. And I remember I was trying to avoid talking about Leave No Traces related to present times. But when I heard that you can get 15 years of hard prison in Russia for just telling the truth, that was this stick for me that I thought that, yeah, it's changed that much that I need to put those two things together, because cinema is, you know, a back to the future kind of thing, and we need to use it, because we as artists, as directors, the only thing we can do, we can just point out, like, there's this story that happened or that didn't happen because it's all fiction, but it might happen. Even Blade Runner 2049. Oh, yeah. Mad Max Fury Road, it's really happening. You see what's happening outside, right? And the fuel is getting higher and higher. So there's tons of things that you can actually, in a way, foresee, and it can be a mistake, but there's this backbone in the film that can somehow, sometimes it works, sometimes it's not working, but this is like with every other thing. And I remember when I was in post-production with Leave No Traces, I had this feeling that maybe someone will come to me and say, well, maybe you should change something. So I had this fear. And this whole project came out of fear, because when I read the book, because the film is based on a reportage book, I read about this story. I got scared because it was so relevant, although it happened almost 40 years ago. And then I'm kind of happy that I have a perspective to make another features, but the world is getting worse and worse, right? And I would love to have the situation that films can actually change the world. Maybe it's somehow possible, sometimes like 1 out of 10,000 or something, but we need to believe in this, because this is like this part of art, which is really engaging. And this is why this discussion makes sense, right?
Poland is today a democracy, the very important member of European Union. What do you think, why do filmmakers, Polish filmmakers, today make stories from the period of communism? What was your main motivation to do this story? You born after the events in a film.
Yeah, I was born in 1984 and it happened a year before that. Well, one of my motivation, because if you want to make a film, I always say that you need to have like a million reasons. One of the reasons, definitely one of the most important ones, was that when I was in high school, we had those history lessons, and when, you know, it was June, so that was like the end of the second semester, and holiday were somewhere around the corner. We're more like, you know, on the level of Second World War, maybe. So we didn't actually learn about the communist era. And people don't know a lot about it, really, especially young people. Those younger than me, because I kind of remember something, because it ended up when I was like 6. So I have like a flashback that I couldn't get, you know, Lego toys or something. That's about it. But my parents told me what was happening, and people who are now in their, I don't know, 20s or something, they don't really know that, and they're not really learned about how it was. Yeah. And when I read this story, I felt that, well, it's a great story for a film because it's relevant. It's an opportunity to show the whole system, because it's not only about Grzegorz Przemyk beating. The main piece of it is that they are covering it all up, right? So you see the structure of evil. This is something, when if you remember, what was this German film called? Life of the Others?
Yes.
It was kind of similar in a way, but you didn't get the whole system out of it. And this is something that I really wanted to see in a film, and I got this opportunity. And I could talk, you know, all night about it.
Thank you, Jan. Please.
I just when you were saying that, I really had understood one thing. What is still, despite films lose their position, in my opinion, this ability to juggle time and space is actually the thing that remains the power of the cinema, and remains like all other forms of both art and media cannot do it. And it's probably like still is the power of the film when, for example, we make the film about past, and but it's actually it's about the present, for example. So we see past, conditional past within the shot, but it's actually the present, and it works with the present. And it's like probably one of the things we should also stick to, because it was from the very beginning that time, what films were, because what is montage is, first of all, it's like the time juggling, let's say. So yeah, thank you for this idea.
Yeah, I want to add one thing, because there's one very weak piece of this, is that the audience, so the people who are on the other side, they need to focus and think and spend some time and actually engage with the, you know, the thing that is happening in this screening room. And now when we have all the streaming services and you just put on all the Avengers films and just, I don't know, clean your dishes, so you don't really care about what's happening on your TV. This is one of the biggest, you know, challenges to make people focus again on audiovisual stuff, because now you can just, you know, skip after, you know, a couple of seconds. I remember when I was studying film directing, I was told that, yeah, you need to focus on first 10-15 minutes because they are the most crucial ones. Now it's like 1 minute, and then you pass to another thing, and I don't know what to do about it, actually. So you know, the audience need to learn how to engage again, because we need the other side to communicate.
Absolutely, communication needs both sides. Well, Eran, you make wonderful engaged film in the most engaged region in the world. I suppose that Middle East is endless inspiration for the artists.
Well, that's a nice way to put a miserable situation, you know, into words.
Well, let it
we
be
are-
morning every day.
I guess now Ukraine can take the lead on being, you know, well, I don't know. It's, you know, it's where I was born. It's not something that I can look on from the side, or it's just, you know, my place. And yeah, the conflict, it's, you know, it's coming out of the ground, it's in the air, it's in the, it's everywhere. It's not, there's no division, you know, actually. So I never thought about myself as, you know, doing, first time I heard this term, engagement film. I mean, any film is an engagement, you know, you have to engage with the actor. No, you have to be with him, and he has to bring some reality, and there's always this struggle about engaging. It's like trying to get somewhere all the time with the camera, you know. So, but it, you know, it happens that the film came out that way, but it was kind of instinctive for me. It was not something that I planned. And I think, you know, just, you know, if I had planned it, you know, I think the film were not as good, I think. I mean, you cannot really say, that's a tool in order to it's about listening to the world around you and talking with it, and, you know, engaging in the search, you know, so at least that's how I feel about it.
Is that political cinema? Do you have some political statement in your films or not? What do you think?
You know, I always, when I'm asked this question, I say, if you want to have a message, you write an email, you know, you don't
Like
spend-
John Ford.
you don't spend 7 years of your life, hesitating if you're gonna shoot here or it's for a message. It's about all those things that you cannot put into words, that you cannot, and they demand a certain tempo of thought, to get to this, because messages, we are covered with messages now. I mean, it's like you get tons of messages every minute about something, and everybody are sure that their message is final, so it's true that this thing of tempo of life, tempo of watching, tempo of going into something which has an argument which is not too clear, but it goes in, and how much of this is people are ready to go into these days? Well, I don't know. It's not my job to know. So, I mean, I hope,
Thank you, Eran, very much. In this moment, we can see some clips and trailers for your films. So please, if we start screening. Thank you. Vinko, do you hear us? Yes, thank you.
Pomoc na wizerunkowej związanym ze sprawą jakiego przewodnika towarzyszy. Pozwolę sobie zaznaczyć, że mój rektor jest świadom. Jerzy powiem, jest jedyną przeszkodą, którą mam na drodze do uczciwego i rzetelnego wyjaśnienia tej sprawy. Operacja Junior, do której zostaliście oddelegowani, ma na celu niwelowanie. Sami sobie teraz wygrać. على الحمام الابيض اللي راح يطير وزور السماء لالوان قوس القزح واحنا على الفنان الاف التعاني.
Thank you very much. Vinko, we have just watched the clip from your film, The Priest's Children. Your films were huge hits in Croatia. What do you think? Does Croatia love engaged films?
Well, it's very hard to say because I have to ask you on your previous question because I never wanted to make engaged film. I always want to tell some interesting story. It's happened that every of my films were recognized as engaged by audience or critics or film festivals, etc. Audience definitely are interested in engaged films because in those kinds of films they can recognize their own problems, their own situation. It doesn't matter of genre, is it drama or comedy or thriller or whatever. And when an audience can recognize their own stories, their own destiny, audience will respond on that film and go to see it.
Is comedy maybe the best genre for engaged film if you want to have a huge audience in the cinemas?
Well, it's not question of audience. If you want to say something very delicate, very problematic, comedy is the best way. Through the comedy, you can say more than through the drama or thriller or whatever or whatever genre. Of course, people love comedy. That's normal. If comedy is good, audience will come.
Thank you, Vinko. Is the same situation in Ukraine when we are talking about the relationship between audience and engaged film, especially in these times?
Well, nowadays we would only have to see how the audience would react and how their tastes would change. Before that, of course, people would better go, but before, of course, for example, we would say that, for instance, war-related films would definitely be a flop in the distribution, just because people would want to really distract from the reality, and they would go to some comedies with TV hosts of daily morning talk shows in the main roles or something. But that is a trick, because I really do agree on the one hand with what Vinko is saying, that comedy sometimes is the best way, but this is also the moment when we ask. I saw a lot of films that are somehow hiding themselves in this form of comedy, and that are like they were actually the statements, and and the humor and the irony was also good, but in many cases irony is like the admission of lack of the power to change something. And we cannot do anything, then we would laugh. And this is really a tricky thing, I would say, because sometimes maybe it's worth trying doing something, but of course it's different individually. But in general, I would say, for example, coming back to your previous film about previous question about whether films are being political or non-political, it's a big deal. It's a big matter of discussions for us. For example, now is culture actually political or non-political? Will it like, is it also part of the war or not part of the war, for example? And we need to remember that we are nothing special. Filmmakers, artists are nothing separate from the wider society. Politics, actually, what it is, politics comes from the word polis, yeah, for example. So since you are living in the village with 5 more people, you are already political. Since you are holding any kind of passport, you're already political. If you're non-political if you are only an outcast living on the uninhabited island. And the same with the and the same with the culture, because culture is not only works of art are only one part of the culture. Culture is much more complex thing, much more complex definition. For example, the thing that we are like sitting together right now, not being, for example, naked, is also part of the general culture. So it's like it's the way of interaction between people. It's the material world. All of this is culture, and that's why we should be aware that we are all parts of this general process. And sometimes we can try to watch on it from the above. Sometimes we can watch from the inside. Sometimes we can do both, but we should be aware that we cannot escape that, neither through irony nor through, how you say it, experimenting with the form or being very artistic. It's delusional.
Maksym, what do you think are engaged films universally understandable in the world, or every film has its own audience in its own country?
Well, I would love to say yes to both of those questions, but I'm not really sure about it. The first thing is, a film it should never be a statement on any level, political level too. And if it's a political statement, it's not a good film in terms of, art. I think about each of my projects, my films, my future projects, as universal stories. And I think it's always good to cut out all those, borders, all those, auto-censorship that you're creating for you. Because I believe that for the director, it's like one of the best emotions that you're going to, I don't know, Canada, wherever, to a film festival or screening, and you get during the Q&A or any meeting after your film, you get a comment about your film. And this is one of the key points for me, that I don't want to project a certain reaction to the audience. This is the freedom of viewers. This is very important for me. I don't really care what they will take out of the film, because film is some kind of a strange mirror, and you have this reflection, and every one of us on the audience, it's a different human being, so the reflection is a different thing. And the other thing related to that is we need to care about the other side to, have those situations that we can sit and talk about it. Otherwise, films and art in general won't make any sense if you don't have an audience.
Thank you. Eran, is every good engaged film impartial in its view about concrete situation, or it
You
isn't?
have to help me a little bit with the English. Impartial with his views, you mean what?
Without a clear statement,
Mhm.
every side has relevance. Because
is
I
this like-
have watched your film, and it's very honest to both sides in the conflict, not only between Israeli and Palestinian, also among Palestinians, and it's very human universal.
First of all, thank you. It's true when I write, I think I can relate to what both Jan and Maksym said about it. That I will always try to doubt my convictions and to doubt the, the what's supposed to be, because everyone has an argument. That's what's really beautiful about life. Everyone has his own point of view, and it's part of the thing to give those and to show those in order for the argument, it's like to enable a certain discussion around it. I don't want to patronize any like. I don't want to patronize the audience, first of all, in a way that is, when I direct something, what would the friend of my mother think about that? I mean, I try not to think just about, but people who are not politically engaged and they are feeding on the mainstream media and they are like, and this is what I think this is the majority at the end of the day that runs. It's always, I'm never interested in the, the extreme like I don't know, evil or the extreme holy person, because these are not the people who moves the system. For me, what moves the system is the banality, is the medium masses. What just so I'm interested in those borderlines and effects of this main, and in order to, I think that to get. It's not that I think I want to get to them, but I want to have like the same way I would discuss with someone sitting in a table, and I would feel his fears, and I wouldn't just go and say, "Oh, you are an evil person." No, I need to kind of get somewhere with the discussion. So that's my, how I work. Even though I don't know, even this is not, sometimes the film I made before this one, I was angry, so I don't think it was like dark, and because that's how I felt at the time. So I cannot even say that this is like a point that, because I guess we are all sometimes also just angry and we said, these people are terrible, it also happens. You cannot always be completely, but I try to.
Well, the band's visit was a great film, and a big hit. But some part of critics say it's idealistic view of Middle East, but we need that. What do you think about that?
I don't know all those people who are those people who knows the Middle East so much, the amount of times I would sit in front of like an American journalist and he's so well read about the Middle East and he knows and I'm like telling myself, come on, this is bullshit. This is not. What do you mean it's idealistic? It's not even about that. If you take the Israeli society and you take the Jews in the Israeli society, then half of the Jews came from Arab countries. Their culture, their ancestor culture is Arabic. The other half came from Europe, okay? But there is there's a story of an uprooted tradition that was taken away from the Jews coming from the Arab world. So, but nobody knows about these kind of definitions. I mean, when you look abroad, Jews, Palestinian, but the fact that there is Moroccan Jews, Iraqi Jews, Syrian Jews, Lebanese Jews, who were all relating to the same kind of tradition, and to the fact that, I don't know, there's so many small questions, even you say it's an idealistic point of view of the Middle East, but if you take the greatest musicians, for example, in the Arab world, in Iraq, for example, the greatest musicians specifically were Jews because of some problems of Islam with music. So they came to Israel and nobody respected their tradition, but they were huge musicians, for example, and they used. So there's all those complexities inside that are not necessarily this, and someone comes and say that's idealistic, it's just throwing up some word, which has no meaning for me.
Well, every film, even the realist one, is an illusion. So we're gonna watch film.
Yeah,
every film.
I don't know even what does it say. It's too idealistic. There's someone can say it's not idealistic at all. There's no ideals. It's just I don't know. People can say whatever.
No, keep doing it. Thank you very much.
I try to look at the person. I try to look in the eyes of the actors. I try to find the truth there. But if I would try to please a certain kind of idealistic thing today with the discourse, and I'm not talking even the right-wing discourse, but if you look at the left discourse about this hyper use of political identity, everything became so intellectualized, and it's like everybody should do a film about what he knows in his kitchen, about it's like it's also another kind of repression, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you. Vinko, you made your first feature in 1996, a year after the war, just after the war, and it was a war comedy about the war. I must say it was very brave for a young filmmaker. And the audience in Croatia reacted extremely well.
Well, I have to say, because my father and me, we made the script during the war. I started shoot
Yes.
immediately after the war, 2 months after the war. What was the question?
You were very brave because the atmosphere wasn't so, how can I say, ideal for war comedy about war, homeland war.
I didn't recognize myself as a brave man, and I don't recognize myself as a brave man now. But audience recognize that film as a brave film. I don't think it's a brave. I think it's a normal film. I wanted to make a story. I want to make a opposite story than official story exists in Croatia in that moment. Because official story in that moment was we are victim. And I didn't want to make that, I didn't want to follow that official politic of Croatian culture politic in that time. I want to be opposite of that. That is the reason why I made comedy.
Oh, thank you, Vinko. Maksym, do you have some political reactions from Ukraine about your film?
Well, once again, as I said, in my point of view, each very even sensual and individual reaction is political. Maybe it's just because we are right now in this spotlight that, we didn't have the possibility to choose. Are we political? Are we apolitical? No, it's like, well, it's you have no other, you see that everything actually around is political. Each step you take is political. And I'm actually, both of you guys told like that you're aiming not to make films political. I actually perceived, sorry to say that, I perceived your films as a strong political statements.
No, that's of course fine with me. That
Yeah.
I'm not avoiding the fact that it's political, but I think the politics is inside my body. You know?
Yes, yes, that's what I also saying.
That's where you live. That's how you do. That's how you look at things. And when it comes out, you can say it's it's political.
So you don't have to, as you said, you don't have to patronize. You don't have to be didactic, and you just don't have to show the audience with your films what is good and bad in your opinion, just to open up the reality and open it up, because well, I don't know, we haven't showed the film in Ukraine yet. We have shown the film like to Ukrainians abroad, for example, and all the people. One more interesting thing, for example, that we had also a screening in Vukovar Film Festival. A main actress was there, and one of the actors, Croatian actors, Edwin. And what they were saying that, for example, people in Vukovar would come, the locals would come and say that your film is about us. And that is, for example, for me was the powerful thing that that is, for example, that it's actually these things that they were saying was political, but at the same time it was metaphysical, because, you know, with it's what we were talking about at the beginning of our conversation. That's how I felt that we managed to break through the fabric of time and build this bond between almost 30 years and few hundred kilometers, but like pointing some similarities without actually underlining them, without actually spelling them. We managed to build these bonds, and that's how these political, non-political things work, probably. I'm also sorry to say that I probably have to run to my plane, but yeah, thank you so much for the conversation. Yeah.
Close for Maksym.
Be safe, Maksym.
All the best, and please back in Pula. Bye-bye, Maksym.
I'm just
say hello to whole Europe. Thank you.
I just had a thought now about this political. I'll give you an example of where it's like specifically political for me. For example, in Let It Be Morning, it was a joint production of Palestinians and Jews. I mean, we had a split crew where the cast is Palestinian. That was the nature. It wasn't that I want to do a film, but that was the nature of also of the story of the project and everything there. It's based on a book by a Palestinian writer. He asked me to adapt it. It was very beautiful thing for me, the whole process. But then, for example, when film meets reality, then we got accepted to Cannes, and two things happened. First is Israel started an operation in Gaza, the last operation, very violent, very also unjust, and there was no reason to it. So we find ourselves, we are about to go to Cannes, and I speak with the cast, and first of all they say, how can I go now on the red carpet and celebrate while my brothers are being killed? It's so then you face political issue like heads on. And the second thing was that the Israeli government passed a law, very strange kind of a law, that it was like every time a film gets financed from an Israeli fund, then it should be represented as Israeli film, which is kind of senseless. And you don't do you present yourself, watch my Polish film? It's like what is this about? It's strange. But and the Palestinians say, but this is also it's a Palestinian story, it's like, and I myself, I don't care. I make a film, I don't think it's an Israeli film, Palestinian film, American film. I go for. So there's two problems, that you face reality now, and that you walk within this, and they decided, the cast, we had some conversation, and they decided to not to come to Cannes and put out a statement, and that's saying we support the film, but we cannot overlook this irony that's happening now. And I supported it, and I published the statement, and I also, took it to Cannes and said it on stage. But what happened is that the media, they don't understand the complexity of how, then it's like, okay, so they didn't come, who are you, or, something like that. But we were facing this complexity and trying to work together on the basis of solidarity, and they got prizes at the Israeli Academy. I read their statements. Of course, I was attacked later for being an anti-Semite or, something like that, because I read this. It's like all this bullshit going around, and I did find myself in the middle of political. And for me, it was very clear, they worked for me, not for me. They worked with me, and I owe a solidarity. Whatever they want to say, I will, I will read it. I will be. So this is where the real political work starts. It's when you get attacked by people from the government, and you have to say back, no, that's how I think, fuck you, I don't care. I see this as a Palestinian film, Israeli film, I don't care. And there was a lot of work, and it affected the film in the way that some of the audience started to think, this is a kind of just political film, we don't want to see it. So this conversation is not helping the film to be shown, because the film, as I said, was much more, story based, and I think people could have seen it much more. But the politicians were actually, using it as a tool now.
Yes.
So you find yourself in this situation. This is where I really felt that I need to hold a very strict political line, even though sometimes it's not understandable to people. They just don't understand this conversation. Yeah.
Well, it's also human line.
What?
It's also human line, human solidarity, professional solidarity.
Yeah, that's the most important. I think that's the way to go about it. You have solidarity to the people that work with you.
Yes, thank you. Eran just mentioned Cannes. Last year you were in Venice. Jan, what do you think? Are some festivals more open to this type of stories, this type of engaged films? Do you calculate about the festivals when you are submitting your recent project? This is better for our presentation or not?
Well, I think like 5 years ago, there was a bigger difference between the festivals. Now, when, Berlin rebooted with the new crew, Cannes is in a different place, and Venice is also going to a different place a bit. In a way, there is a strong similarity, but that's like, at first glance. I can say that, I really like Venice because my film was there last year. And actually, I'm coming there this year for one of the juries, and this is great.
Absolutely.
I think the schedule is actually important, that that you won't be, the film won't be finished for Cannes, and it can be finished for Venice. This is like, the really, really important thing. And you asked me about, calculating. I don't calculate that, really. I want my film to be premiered in
no matter where.
Well, in a great place where people will see it. It should be an A-class festival. It's not that important right now, but I want people to see my film. I want the audience to be as big as possible, and this is why Venice, Cannes, Berlin, and maybe some other festivals like San Sebastian, Locarno can just start a tour with it. I want to come back to one of the things that actually was in one of the clips, because there is this very funny thing, very, very funny thing about people that they don't get what metaphor is.
Metaphor's metaphor.
Yeah. And that's a big problem, because I totally understand what you said about, we have so much different things in a film, and people are, pointing out this one thing. There is the case. It's not film related, actually. It happened in Poland last week. You probably know a great Polish writer, Olga Tokarczuk. She got Nobel Prize like 2 years ago, and Bookers and some other stuff. So very, very smart and great books. And she had a lecture last week, I think, on one of the literature festivals in Poland. And that was like 90 minutes of very smart talking. And one of the sentences that she actually said is that, well, books are not really for idiots. And everyone picked that up. I mean, every, every platform, every website, and it's all around the news. And now there's like a backlash for that. And I'm saying, well, it was 90-minute lecture, and that was one of the sentences. Maybe you should listen to the whole lecture, because that's the complexity we want the audience to get. It's not like your film, but it's about the conflict, and you're on one side, right? No, not really. That's much more than that, because films are not just political statements that are put in the news or on Twitter. It's much more complicated. And this is what I believe we all fight for, that we want the focus of the audience and maybe some sort of reaction.
Absolutely, reactions, yeah.
But coming to think of that, but the system today has found a film to be a very easy, like boxing, how do you say, sack,
Yeah.
So every time politicians are making use of something, and for example, with Poland now, I have a good friend of mine, he's a producer, Barak Heyman. He produced a documentary about the artist Danny Caravan, and who made in Poland, one of his, I can't remember, one of his famous project in the memory of the Holocaust. And in the film, there is one discussion with a professor, and the professor is saying like about how much complicity the Polish people had in the World War II. And he says something like, if you take the numbers and you say, okay, there was like, let's say 100,000 people who were, against the regime and help, but he says something like, but what about the other, million, and where were they? And the reaction now of the Polish Film Fund is to cancel his, they try to take back the money that was invested in the documentary. And also in Israel, they do the same stuff. There was a film by Sua Aref, who's a Palestinian director, who enlisted her film as Palestinian to Venice Film Festival. And the government was going to the fund, say, you bring the money back. And the same thing now in Poland. It's like everywhere. These are questions that, these are the political questions. In Israel now, they established a new fund, which is directed at the occupied territories. And if you look at the actual, law, then you understand that the people that will enjoy this fund, which is for the occupied territories, will only be Jews, and so it's a political way. They are always, the engagement is not in making the film. We all try to follow a story. We try to, but there's a whole system around, now, which is very dangerous. It's like they're always playing with this. You took money from the government and you said something that we don't like. We want the money back. And people are like saying, yes, well, that makes reason. Why should he take money from Poland and say something like that about Polish? So I think those are things that happening all the time around, at least around where I am now.
Around the world, I must
Yeah.
say, also here in Europe. Well, we are open to your questions and your opinions. Please do have ones. Are you engaged? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. For all of you.
I think that film festivals, that's the only spot that can actually work worldwide. Because if you're gonna get a Palme d'Or or something, someone will see that. And if you're putting a film which was in the competition or one of the sections, but didn't get any appreciation, whatever that means, it won't be, great numbers, I suppose. But I would, this is something that I wanted to say earlier on too. I would really be, subtle with this idea of engaged films, because that means that also I won't relax in a cinema, right? When the film is engaged. This is very, very tricky. And I believe that you can't actually put all the films that are engaged in one box, because it's not good for each of them. I mean, every film, at least I would like to, think about it like that. Every film is something unusual, that it's not repetitive. And it needs some coverage, and film festivals are the only spots that can, somehow underline their value. This is why it's so important. This is what I think.
Thank you, Eran.
I don't know. I'm thinking about it. It's true. The cinema attendance has gone down. Certainly, the community which we used to live in, if I call it community, which means the audience, the festival, the filmmakers, and the community of cinema has been kind of broken down and shattered because of many technical and technological changes, the streamers and everything. So this world has changed. I do see people are more interested in this like cultural event. I mean, the film as itself, it's very hard to get people to the cinema unless it's won the Palme d'Or. Okay, and even if it won the Palme d'Or, it's nowhere near where it used to be. So it's not even about, but people do come when they have a sort of context around it. And I see it in festivals, I see it, that the cultural context, and I think maybe these kind of films, they need structure to contextualize them in some way that audience that are interested will come. It's just, maybe it's not the best example, but I don't know, you get a foreign film today bought by US distributor or whatever, okay? The one foreign film that they buy, or the 2, 3, 4, it screens in New York for 1 weekend, goes down, 3 people, 100 people come or whatever. That's the kind of situation. But then, for example, for me, if I go for Jewish film festival around the US, you get full venues because people are interested in their cultural heritage and in the world, and it kind of puts it in a certain place that they come. So the audience is important. I don't care if he buys, if he comes because he feels connection to his Judaism in some way and he wants to see it, or if he thinks himself as a film lover, and I'm not talking just about being Jewish. There's a lot of other contextual ideas of community that I can see a way of cinema kind of going there somehow, being a part of something which is bigger, and then, reviving in some way. I can imagine that.
Thank you very much. Maybe another question? If not, we are a little bit in time, I must say. Okay. Well, Vinko, we watched your recent film, What a Country, here in Pula in 3 years ago. Are you in the middle of preparing the next one? Also engaged?
No. No, I'm not in the middle. I'm in middle prepare TV series, Big Paris Diary.
Next chapter.
second-
Next
second
chapter.
season.
I wish you all the best. It's also
Thank you very
engaged, very engaged. Thank you very much. And the question, of course, for you, your next project after Leave No Traces.
Well, it looks like I'm about to shoot 2 films next year.
Next year.
Yes, and it's a big change because I didn't enter any film sets since we wrapped up Leave No Traces, so it's like almost 2 years now. And I've never had that kind of situation in my whole professional life. So that's interesting. Those 2 projects are both contemporary. They're not based on any true story. So that's also new. And it's really hard for me to say what kind of films that there will be actually. Well, I'm like in process. We have this screenplay, we're casting, we're working on it.
You're open to solutions.
Well, now, you know, after COVID especially, I believe that you can say that you have your next film when you wrapped up with the shooting. That's the moment, because we shot Leave No Tracing during the first year of COVID with no vaccinations, no real test actually. So it was a mess, especially with those crowd scenes and so on. And I think that, and between my previous film, The Last Family, and Leave No Traces, I had like 27 different projects that I was kind of interested in, but they didn't happen for various reasons, because we couldn't get the rights for the book, or the screenwriter didn't want to write it the way I wanted to have it, and so on and so on. So I'm trying not to foresee that, oh, this is gonna be the next one. We have it all kind of scheduled, and it looks like I'm gonna shoot 2 films, but we'll see about that.
Okay, we're gonna see it. Maybe in Pula.
Hopefully. I love this festival.
Thank you. Thank you. Eran, a next adaptation or not? Original screenplay
My next project is a TV series.
also, like
yeah,
Vinko.
I'm working on, and I'm supposed to shoot it. It's an Israeli-German co-production, and I'm supposed to shoot it in the beginning of next year. If everything works out right, because I can sit here and talk as if I understood the world, but at the end of the day, you're sitting alone in front of the computer at night, and you're like lost. So
I know that feeling.
yeah, so that's it.
What a feeling.
Yeah.
Well, Eran, Jan, Vinko, thank you very much. And above all, keep doing what you wonderfully do. Thank you very much.
you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Thank you.
Hvala ti, Vinko.
Well, I'm still thinking about one sentence. I try to imagine us naked in the dead room. I don't know in what level is culture problem, and in what level it could be visual problem.
I must say it's not a problem. Thank you.
Goodbye.